Have you ever wondered what it really takes to become a butler for a billionaire, royalty, or even a Hollywood star? In this video, I'm going to go beyond the green baize door and share with you the skills and, more importantly, the personality that you need if you want to be noticed by the most important people in the world and secure that job as a private butler and house manager. If you think that being a butler is all about wearing a morning suit and polishing silver, I've got to tell you that that's probably about 0.01 of what a butler does. The first question for you is, do you think you have what it takes to run a beautiful mansion, to anticipate the needs of the most demanding people in the world? If you think you do, let me take you on a journey into the world of the high-profile butler. I started my career as a butler 25 years ago, and I started at the bottom. I started as a footman at Leeds Castle in Kent. There I learned all the, shall we say, the old-fashioned butler skills, and I learnt them in the old-fashioned way. I learnt how to polish silver, I learnt how to scrub floors, I learnt how to do silver service, I learnt my wine, I learnt my cigars. These are all skills that you need if you want to be a butler. These are skills that take time, they take repetition. You need to hone them. Now you may think, well, I'll just go to butler school. But going to butler school is not enough. Even if you go on one of the 6-week butler schools, you're still not going to be an expert on all those things. Those butler schools, and all of them pretty much, are brilliant. But you need to practice in your own time. You need to have passion for these things. But how do you get yourself actually on the list to get an interview with the kind of client that you want to serve? Well, it's surprisingly difficult. A lot of adverts say minimum 5 years experience in a similar role. Now, of course, if you are brand new to butlering, that's impossible, because how could you already have 5 years experience? Entry-level roles are ironically the most difficult to find. When you do find them, they'll probably be very poorly paid. They'll probably involve a huge amount of work and long hours. And I appreciate this job I'm describing to you does not sound tempting. I can totally understand if someone's thinking to themselves, well, why would I work long hours, high stress, and get paid the same as I would to stack shelves at Tesco's? Well, it really depends what your long-term goals are. Because you remember I said to you that they're looking for that 5 years of experience. Now, they don't care what you're getting paid for those 5 years experience. They just want to know that you have the ability to knuckle down and commit to a job. Right, so step one. Step one is build your portfolio of experience. The easiest butler job to get is probably working as a butler in a hotel. But bear in mind, you will almost certainly have to travel to get that position. Because obviously I've got no idea where you live. If you happen to live in the Maldives or the Caribbean, then there's probably actually a lot of hotels near you that have butlers. But if you live in rural France or Britain or somewhere like that, that's not within London, Paris or New York or one of these big cosmopolitan cities, there are very few hotel butlers, very, very few. So you're probably going to have to travel to get that position. The second way of building up that portfolio of experience is by doing freelance jobs. Now, if you're lucky, and it's not against the rules of where you work, you might be able to do that at the same time. So you can sign on with an agency and you can go to different places. Now, if you're in the UK, that's quite often doing things like the VIP boxes at Wembley Stadium or Wimbledon or other big events like Ascot and Cheltenham. If you're in the USA, then I'd say that's probably more going to be house parties and events where someone really wants to raise the standard by having a butler. All these things are good to raise your profile and your knowledge base. There's also a chance that you might meet a future employer on one of these jobs. Number 2 is build up your technical skills. Do certification, various other things that will be useful to you as a butler house manager, like wine, but also things like electrician skills, plumbing skills, building skills. All these things are actually, when you think about it, if you're managing a stately home, if you know how the electrical systems, the plumbing systems, if you know how they work, that is massively useful. I remember going to an interview and it happened to say under my hobbies on my CV that woodwork and carpentry was a hobby of mine. It's true, it is. And I hadn't even thought about that. I just put it on because it's true, and you know, you're supposed to put hobbies, aren't you? And the employer looked at it and he said, now that's brilliant, because I have lots of antique furniture and I want someone who appreciates and understands wood. And that was one of the big plus points about choosing me for that position. Number 3, build your network. Get to meet other butlers. You'd be amazed at how often the jobs that people get are through other butlers, because quite often when you hand in your notice to leave a role, the first thing that the client says to you, the first thing the principal says to you is, could you please find your replacement and train him or her? It's happened to me several times. In fact, that's how I got my love of training, actually, was training my replacements. So obviously, if you meet butlers and get to know them who are further along the career than you are, that's a really good way of them recommending you for posts in the future. Next one is decide what sort of job you actually want. If you want, I'm in a beautiful shooting estate right now, and if that sounds like your kind of thing, you know, I'm looking out on hills and moors and beautiful countryside, but it's quite remote, there's no towns nearby or anything like that. If that sounds like your sort of thing, then that's probably the kind of job you should go for. But if you're the sort of person who loves to be in the city and has grown up in London or New York and really would feel very lonely in a place like this, I would strongly recommend that you don't apply for a job in a place like this, because you're probably not going to be able to do it well if you're not comfortable doing it. And obviously vice versa. If you're a country mouse, I'm assuming you know the story of the country mouse and the town mouse, otherwise it's going to sound like I'm saying something weird there. If you're a country mouse and you're put in the middle of the city, again, you might find the whole experience overwhelming. Think deeply about what you want to do and where you want to do it. Same if you've grown up in somewhere like the UK or the USA and you're moving out to Saudi Arabia. Again, it's going to be a massive cultural change. Now, I love Saudi Arabia. It's a beautiful place, beautiful people, but it's incredibly different. So you may or may not love it. Plenty of people don't. But let's say you've put in your hard graft. You've done your training. Maybe you've spent a few years working as a hotel butler. Maybe you've spent a few years as what we used to call a job-in butler or a freelance butler, working for one of the agencies, going to lots of different properties. Now, this is a brilliant way into the industry, because the beauty of being either a hotel butler or a freelance butler is you're honing your skills at serving different people every day. You have to learn how to react to different personalities, different situations. One of the big mistakes that I see a lot is people changing their butler job every 1 or 2 years. And some of the less, what shall we say, responsible employment agencies are terrible for actually encouraging you to do this. Please bear in mind that they only make money when they place a new person in a role. And quite frankly, they don't really care what happens to that person once they've got their money. Maybe I'm being a little brutal on them, but you see what I mean. Once the year has gone past, and therefore they're not going to have to refund any of that finder's fee, they really don't mind if you move to somewhere else. In fact, they'd love it, because there's a very good chance that that client will want to employ another butler into that role, and they will get money for that. So when they're saying to you, oh yes, move on because it's going to be a great opportunity for you, what they often mean is move on because it's going to be a great opportunity for them. And I know from personal experience, having many conversations with different principals who are employing butlers, if they look at a CV and see someone who's moved on after 18 months, 24 months, and hasn't stuck at a job for a good amount of time, that CV is straight in the rubbish. Okay? They want to see someone with commitment. Now, that's not to say if you're working and it is a horrible situation and you really don't want to be there, that's not to say you can't leave. I'm not trying to say that. But don't do it over and over again, and don't do it just because you think you're going to get paid more or you think you're going to have to work less hard somewhere else. The beauty of being a butler is, just like me, you can start at the bottom and work your way up. Someone put what to me was quite a disheartening comment on one of my videos. Now, I'm not saying anything against this person by any means, but they were saying that they thought I portrayed butlering in too good a light, shall we say. They were implying that I was trying to say it was too good a job, and in their experience it had been grueling and they'd been micromanaged and they'd been badly treated. Now, that's not my experience of being a butler. I'm not saying for a second that it isn't their experience. I'm not saying that they're not being 100% truthful, because I know, unfortunately, there's plenty of butlers who've had that experience, but it's not mine. So I'm not going to say that's what it's like, because that is not what I have experienced. I've been treated extremely well, with respect and with kindness by my employers. That's not to say I haven't worked bloody hard. That's not to say I haven't moved heaven and earth to make their experience good. All I'm saying is they have rewarded me for my hard work. Now, this video has very much not been about me sort of plugging my butler school. In fact, I have purposefully barely mentioned butler schools, because that's only one part of your journey of becoming a great butler. But I will mention that I have a butler school starting on the 16th of February. There are still, well, of course, there's still places available. This is actually the first time I've really spoken publicly about it, and we've already half filled the course. But there are places available. It's a 4-week course at the price of £4,000, that's Great British pounds, and it's actually at my wonderful new beautiful castle location, and I'll be doing a separate video where I'll be introducing you, because I'm so excited. It's definitely going to take a whole video. I'm so excited about what is going to be the perfect butler school location, and I'm not going to go on about it now, but it's amazing. If you would like to come on the butler school, then of course I would love to have you. My training is very different from other butler schools. I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying it's different. What I want to do is give you the tools to build yourself a truly great career as a butler. From my analytics, I know there's a lot of people that watch my channel that don't subscribe. It would be really good if you could subscribe to the channel, because that helps me a lot. That helps me keep the channel going. It actually helps a lot with the discoverability of the videos and things like that, so I'd be super grateful. I look forward to see you again on the next video. Have a great one. Bye bye.